All right, everyone, Judge Kavanaugh will get his final vote tomorrow, following the FBI's 7th investigation into his background. But new reports today beg the question, was there any foul play there? As a key witness comes forward telling the FBI she was pressured by a friend of Dr. Christine Ford. Well, who knows better than the experts, folks who have worked at the FBI themselves. Joining me right now, former FBI supervisor Manny Gomez and former FBI investigator Bill Daly. Good to see you both.
Good to be here.
The FBI has been under a lot of criticism. Comey certainly took a lot of criticism. The investigation into Russia and potential collusion has certainly taken a lot of criticism, including from me right here on this show. Why am I to believe that in this particular case, the FBI is doing the right thing, Manny?
Well, the FBI is supposedly an apolitical organization that serves at the pleasure of the president and the attorney general, but ultimately serves the people of the United States. That's the FBI that I grew up in. That's the FBI that should be and that we all know. However, in this particular case, they were giving very strict guidelines of what the scope of their investigation is. They followed that scope. They had a timeline that was not generous. They did the best they could under the circumstances. They found that they couldn't corroborate Dr. Ford's allegations, and thus we are where we're at.
It gets a little confusing here, so just bear with me as we look at sort of the back and forth. But there's an interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal today that basically goes through some of the key players here. And one of them, a friend of Christine Ford, Leland Kaiser, apparently told FBI investigators that she felt pressure to clarify her original statement that she made by Monica McLean, who was the woman who allegedly, but is denying, she had been coached to take a polygraph by her friend, Dr. Ford. Is it possible that the FBI would be out there pressuring someone to say something or to clarify something along the way, in your view, Bill?
No.
No.
Simple. I think here you're talking about somebody who used to be with the FBI, at least that's the allegations. And it would also tell you something, Trish, just a lot of these things we've seen in the past couple of weeks, I call them red herrings. The things that are thrown out there is in some way not immediately germane to the investigation that the Bureau was asked to look into, and are things to distract from what the real facts of the issues are at hand. So I think some of these things, although kind of interesting, and you certainly would love to know the answer, those were not the exam questions that the Bureau was given.
Yeah,
and so we have to be careful we don't kind of go down rabbit holes here and kind of lose track.
I hear, I like what you said there, the exam questions that the Bureau was given, because this was an investigation that was supposed to be very limited in scope and in time. And so a lot of folks have said, well, why didn't they at least interview her or interview him? Like, how could they possibly not? And you've pointed out that this is because they had all the testimony, right? And then they were just going to try and verify who were the people that were at that party. Could they verify that any of this happened?
Absolutely.
And they couldn't.
They couldn't verify it. They already have sworn testimony. Numerous people, including the senators and a professional prosecutor, already interrogated, if you will, these two folks. And so the question is, could anybody corroborate the allegations? They interviewed numerous people. Supposedly the report is about 1,000 pages long, which tells you the scope and the amount of work that the FBI did in a mere 5 days. And they couldn't corroborate anything. Thus,
so here we are.
So here we are.
And yet he may still not get confirmed, even though there are a bunch of allegations that were thrown at him, really horrible, heinous allegations. He denies them. The FBI can't confirm them. They've done 7 background checks, and still his future, Bill, hangs in the balance. I mean, kind of makes you wonder about the future. Yeah. Just real quick, if you can.
Yeah, real quick, Trish. And you mentioned before the number of investigations he's gone through, and of which several of these, I mean, Manny and I know what those involve, but full field investigations where they've gone out talking to people, not the ones we would put down as references, not Aunt Tilly and Uncle Mike. These are people who we don't know. They're going to try to find out information about who we are and our character. And that's what they've gone through, especially on this national security clearance level. So, this is just an add-on to it, and not for people to think that this Bureau investigation was a redo of everything and going back 35 years, looking at every aspect.
Right, but
it was
an add-on to what they had already done. All right, that's why
they call it supplemental.
Bill and Manny, thank you very much.
Thank you.